welcome to the latest Forever Blue podcast. I'm Ian Cheeseman, the host, and as ever, I will be joined by three people, one Manchester City legend and hero, and two members of the Forever Blue podcast team. First of all, I just want to give out a big thank you to DSW, who are specialists in training, assessment, and all that sort of stuff. They're based in Doncaster, and they're great supporters of the work that I do. So I just want to thank them, and Patrick in particular. My special guest this week is former City player Kit Symons. So thanks very much, Kit, for giving up some time on a Sunday evening, as we do when we record this. And also to Andy and Harlan, two other members of the team. Now, obviously, we're going to look back now on the defeat at Newcastle United. But there are two different ways that we can do this. One is to abstractly jump about, and the other is to talk at the beginning anyway about the controversial decisions. So I want to talk about the controversy and the decisions because I've seen a lot of City fans making very strong comments against the referee, accusing the Premier League of corruption and all this sort of stuff. So I want to address that to begin with, and then we'll talk about the performance itself. So, Kit, I know you weren't able to watch the game live, but you've seen the key moments as were highlighted on Match of the Day, which for those who listen outside of the UK is our highlights programme on a Saturday evening on the BBC in England. And the big moments were, we'll list them. There was the claim of Foden penalty, perhaps the defender being sent off. There was Donnarumma perhaps being fouled in the build-up to a goal. There was the offside decision that may have ruled out the second goal that Newcastle United scored. Have I missed anything obvious? Those were certainly the main three that I recall. So having watched them on TV, Kit, which actually I was at the stadium, so even I had to watch it again on TV to see it properly, because in that away end, I don't know if you know what it's like up there at Newcastle, but you're up in the gods, miles away, and all the key incidents happen at the other end of the pitch, so you don't get a great view of it. You've seen it. Let's go through them one at a time. Phil Foden, was it a penalty? Was it a sending off?
Yeah, well, listen, I think it was a penalty. I mean, he got his shot away, but that's not the point. That's not. I mean, that does actually come into the referee's thinking, but not just he got his shot away, so it's okay to then boot him basically. Which, yeah, so for me, that certainly looked like a penalty, and I think they got that one wrong, to be honest.
Andy, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, agree. Even from the away end, you could see that Foden was taken out and the ball hadn't moved. So even I could see that from the seventh floor. So I think it was a penalty. And having seen it now again on TV, yeah, that should have been given.
Harlan, what do you think of it?
Having watched it back 7, 8 times, probably 10. Listen, I Foden's a world-class footballer, we know that. But if I'm being, Kit, you've coached football at a very high level yourself. We all know what Phil's ability level is like. For me, at times, maybe he doesn't use his right foot enough. For me, the weight of pass was beautiful into his path. I think if he takes that with the inside of his right foot and then goes back across the keeper, got a good chance of scoring. The fact that he tries to take it with the outside of his left foot, for me, I'm just looking from the devil's advocate view. As he clattered him, absolutely. I agree with Kit. The ball for me has gone because he's shot, and Foden's almost had his chance from the referee's viewpoint. If Foden's still got the ball on the outside of his left foot and he gets taken out, which is what you believe you saw, Andy, and I agree that the ball's not far gone, but it's gone enough for me for a referee in today's game, because I'm well aware that referees at youth football level now are making decisions based on the fact that the player has played the ball. Listen, the rules now have gone that far the other way that there are so many interpretations of what is a foul in or outside the box now that none of us can keep up with the way the game has gone. So one week it will be, the next week it won't, and it's gone from one referee to another. But if I'm being, I wouldn't say critical, but if I'm looking at it as a situation, the referee will have given Foden the benefit of the doubt, as will the VAR, not give a penalty on the basis that Foden's actually taken a poor touch with the outside of his left foot and has almost given himself a lesser clear-cut shooting opportunity, has still taken the shot on, and has then latterly been taken out as a result of an out-of-control challenge. I watched the match of the day analysis of that, and it's an out-of-control challenge. He wasn't in control of his movement, and a penalty, therefore, should be given on that basis. However, the ball has gone, and what I'm led to believe now is that if the ball has gone and the player makes a challenge after the ball has gone, that a penalty is less likely to be given than if the ball is still in control of the player that's about to shoot.
What you illustrate with that answer is that we're all a little bit confused about what should be a
Correct.
relatively straightforward decision. I think that's a
Correct.
penalty. I think it's a
Correct.
reckless
But Phil,
challenge and
for me,
potentially a sending off as well.
But Phil, for me, as good as he is, probably should have done better with the chance.
Not about
as he could have
Foden.
done with
It's not
the
about
next one.
Foden, Haaland. It was intent, and the intent was quite clear from the defender for me. Kit's a defender. He knows that if you're putting your studs up, and there's no way you're taking the ball out, you don't deserve anything other than at least a penalty against you, and maybe, as Ian said, worse. I think Foden is not to blame for anything that happened whatsoever in that incident.
Kit, as a defender, you wouldn't have made a challenge like that anyway, but if you had, would you have expected a penalty and a red card?
I wouldn't have been close enough, Cheesy, but no, well, probably not. I mean, as we're all saying, the game's changed dramatically, and what we think the rules actually haven't changed that much, but the interpretation of the rules and how people read it has changed, certainly. I mean, like, he caught him and caught him flush, like after the ball. I mean, the one sort of get out of jail thing for the referee is the ball had gone, but it was a bit unorthodox by Phil the way he did it, and because he's got such great technique, he took it very, very quickly, touch and shot, and it, as Harlan said, it was a bit unorthodox. He could have come across on his right, possibly, but it was like shot away really quickly, which I think surprised the defender, but he committed, and then he went through and caught him pretty cleanly on the outside of the foot. But, so, for me, I think that's a penalty all day long.
Next one I'm going to ask you about is the foul on Donnarumma, or the alleged foul on Donnarumma. What do you think? You've seen it, Kit, haven't you? Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that a foul?
I don't think so, really, if I'm honest. I think there's a lot of this going on now, and by pretty much all teams, the set piece coaches assign people a specific job to go and disrupt the opposition goalkeeper. That's a job. Now, it's a tricky one because for sure he goes in and disrupts him and upsets him, but does he foul him? I think the game's gone a little bit too much, probably protecting keepers. I think when you look at the amount of sort of, and the referees have been told to crack down on the amount of holding that goes on in the penalty area now at set pieces, corners especially, but there's still a lot of it going on, far worse than what happened to Donnarumma. So I don't think keepers should be treated particularly differently to the outfield players. I think there is still too much going on of the grabbing and the holding. It's been allowed to come in. It's quite difficult to get it out now. The referees collectively have all got to be really, really strong on it to a man. But like I say, I think there is going to be physical contact coming in. I for me, don't think that was enough to warrant a foul, probably. He did go and disrupt him and affected him, but I don't think he fouled him.
Andy?
No foul. Pep mentioned it against Bournemouth. David Brooks, all 5'7" of him. And then yesterday, these little lads coming in and ruffling up this giant of a keeper to block him from actually moving. Donnarumma needs to do better than that, I think. And no, I don't think it was a foul.
Harlan?
No foul for me. I agree with Kit. I agree with Andy. Both obviously saying the same thing. I'm in complete agreement with Kit. I think goalkeepers, I'm coaching myself now, and I'm coaching today. We had a 15-year-old in goal for our under-18s at Northwest Youth Alliance level, and he's a young boy. And straight away we're saying to him, you've got to step up today. You've got to be brave. You're playing with older lads. You're playing with physical number nines who are brutes, who are 6'4", 6'5". He's only 5'8", but he's a very, very eloquent goalkeeper with his feet. Very good with his hands. He's the opposite to Donnarumma in the way that Andy's just described him. So it's flipped in terms of our goalkeeper that we had today, but you've still got an advantage as a goalkeeper. And I agree with Kit. I agree with Andy 100%. You have got so much more leeway than a forward has in the box when it comes to going into an attack versus defence duel with a goalkeeper nowadays. And a keeper can steam into a number 9, hit the deck, get a free kick. And Erling Haaland's holding his arms out and going, well, what did you want me to do? It was a 50-50. I had every right to go for the ball. The keeper will always get the advantage. But on this occasion, for me, I agree with Andy wholeheartedly that with Gigi being the size that he is, he could actually be more physical. And at the moment, he's still, for me, sussing out where he needs to affect the set pieces in this country and how to read the flight of the ball from the wicked set piece takers that the football clubs in England have. And for me, he does look to punch a lot of things and not catch a lot. And he'll learn, he'll develop. He's still only 25, for God's sake. He's been in the game for 10 years. He's played at one of the most wonderful historical stadiums in the world, in the San Siro for AC Milan. He made his debut at 16. The fact that he's been around for as long as he has and still has another probably 10, 15 years left of his career is phenomenal. So he'll learn the Premier League. But for me, keepers get too much protection and yeah, no foul.
It wasn't a foul for me either. I thought actually he was a little bit weak in the way he came out. His positional play wasn't good. Obviously we're not talking about this yet, but he almost gifted Newcastle a goal in the first minute. Then again, he made 2 really good saves, but sometimes his positional play isn't great or his distribution isn't great. So those are things I think he needs to look at. Then we come on to the offside decision. Now, again, I'm inside the stadium, and when Newcastle took the lead again to go 2-1 up, and everybody around me is going crazy with the City fans, being upset, and all the Newcastle fans are going crazy with celebration. And I've got to the stage now where I think something, I didn't notice anything at the time, but I thought VAR's bound to play a part here because there was a bit of a scramble before the ball went in the net and something must have happened in there, whether they're claiming for handball, offside or whatever it is, it's bound to go to VAR. You then stand there, sit there, whatever, for 4 or 5 minutes. It felt like about an hour before a decision was made. And then when I get home and watch it and I get sent pictures, the cartoon to begin with, the new automated system, and then the still picture as well, and people compare the two, and then I watch it in real time on television. The first thing I think of is that if it takes 4 or 5 minutes to make a decision, and you're talking about a hair's breadth. Now, obviously, if this was a goal for City, we'd all look at it differently because we'd all be saying, yeah, of course it was onside and all the rest of it. If you're trying to be neutral, and I've been a journalist in my career as well as podcaster, vlogger, and fan and everything else, I've got to be honest and say there was so little in that I have no problem with the goal standing. But I think that goes against what everybody else thinks. So I've given my opinion. Kit, was that offside? Should it have been disallowed?
No, well, I find it hard to go against especially when it's a semi-automated as well. And that's work. They've had a few teething problems with that, by the way. But when it's up and working, I think it's hard to argue with that. Now we're saying it's his elbow that played him on or whatever, and it's hard to take. But if those, I think we got to go with the technology, and if those are the rules that his elbow can play him on side, then so be it. I think you've got to accept that and get on with it. People are saying there's a conspiracy theory, and you see a different angle of his foot in different pictures and things like that. I'm not a great believer in a lot of these conspiracy theories. It was a really tight call, and it's one that's gone against, and it's sort of hard to take because it's not gone the way that City fans wanted. But I think it's one of those things you've got to go with it when the technology, you've got to trust in the technology. And But even technology sometimes can be wrong, but you've got to just go with it. Once the decision's made, that's it. So
A lot of the complaints, though, have been because people have compared the, as I call it, cartoon picture with real life and saying Ruben Diaz in the cartoon, I'm trying to think if this is the right way around, but in one of them anyway, he was off the ground by 6 inches. And the
Cartoon.
other one, which is supposed to be the same picture, he wasn't. And they're saying that is the reason why they believe it's corruption.
Yeah, I'm not sure about corruption. Listen, mistakes, even with technology, mistakes can be made, but this is a split second thing. And I mean, the difference between the two pictures would be, literally a split second, like a tenth of a second or something. I don't know. And suddenly his foot comes up a little bit or whatever. But yeah, I mean, to say that that's corruption or whatever is stretching it a little bit. Even if a mistake has been made, and mistakes can be made even with this technology these days. But yeah, I think it's one. Listen, it's not easy to take, but you sort of wipe your face and get on with it in these situations. I'm a big believer.
Andy?
So I have a pocket radio, which is my VAR when I'm at the match. So when that happens, I can pop it in. And I've got BBC Radio Newcastle, which obviously is biased towards the Manx. And they were clear. They thought the goal was going to be chalked off. But what was interesting was after about 2 minutes, they said, oh, our VAR feed has been closed down. We can't see it anymore. Because obviously Stockley Park want to analyse this to death. And then obviously I've seen what you've seen, what you just alluded to with the images that have been floating around today. And I go back to, again, what VAR was meant to do, and that was to determine whether a clear and obvious mistake has been made by the officials. And I don't believe that they made a clear and obvious mistake, having seen the different images, whether it's the elbow, whether it's the shoulder, whatever. I mean, are we really into that kind of refereeing now that we need to start to question where the line is? And there's another one today with the Villa Leeds game, I think I've seen as well. That's taking, refereeing to another level. And I think we're seeing it in rugby now that the games are lasting 20 minutes longer because of the amount of referrals to TMO. And it's killing it. So honestly, if back to clear and obvious, as long as it's consistent, I'm fine. But you can't have this third official drawing millimetre lines here and there and so on. And semi-automated, well, if it's 5 minutes, it's too long.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. The delay, the timing to sort these out is too long. I mean, I was at the Wolves game yesterday, and that again, same thing. There was the first goal for Palace was a VAR goal and a close offside. Again, had to be checked, and it was a long time on the check, too long. But on the clear and obvious, VAR's got to check every goal. So it's not checking because it thinks the referee made a mistake. It's got to check every goal. So then, obviously, if it's a tight call for offside, which it clearly was, whichever way it was going to go, it was going to be tight. The VAR's got to check that, and then the semi-automated offside was brought in for exactly that situation. These really tight ones, because otherwise they're drawing all the cross hairs, and that takes longer. And so this is meant to make it more accurate and quicker. But
Harlan, what do you think?
Listen, I don't want the game to go this way. It's been so refreshing, Ian, to go to Boundary Park recently and watch Oldham a couple of times, and to be coaching myself at youth level and not have any single outside influence affecting the game other than just linesmen and a referee in the middle. And to go to Oldham and know that when you score, you score, and when you don't score, you don't score. It's been very, very refreshing. That's not to say I don't enjoy going and watching City or any other Premier League club for that matter. If I was to go and watch a club and I was visiting a town or a city, or I was watching City away, it's just that it's been going on for that long now. I liked the idea of VAR at the very beginning. We did a debate back at the Holiday Inn a year and a half before it even became a thing in the Premier League. I remember me, you, Adam Waring, Emily, and a couple of others were sat around a table talking about, will VAR work in England? Well, it would have done had they have left it the way that it ran in the 2018 World Cup. And then they started tinkering with it. And we had a certain version, and Spain had a different version, and Germany were using a different version. The MLS were using a different version. Jared Gillett, the referee that's over here now, was in Australia using a different version. How is it one game if everyone's using a different version of the technology? It should have been one conclusive program that was run across the whole world in football. Everyone was using the same technology at the same stage of development, and we knew what was a clear and obvious decision, what wasn't. Like Kit says, that every goal will be checked or every goal won't be checked, or it'll only be checked if the referee asks for it to be checked or if the VAR recommends a check. But right now, we don't know what's going to happen from one week to the next in what game. Is it influencing bigger teams? Is it influencing smaller teams? Is it being evened out week by week? Because I have physically heard referees recently say things along the lines of, well, I give a pen and I'm almost sure that I give a wrong decision, so I've got to look at... And Mike Dean was quoted on a podcast as saying, when I was refereeing, you always have it in the back of your mind that you maybe got that one wrong, so you've got to do this, that, and the other. And that's obviously always going to play a part in the game, but it's whether it plays a part in the VAR's mind, who is giving the goal or recommending the referee to give the goal, because they know that earlier on, actually, we made a faux pas on that one that we give. So now we've almost got to give that one because... And that's where, for me, I think corruption's the wrong thing, but evening the game out is probably the better way to describe it. Can it happen? Does it happen? Should it happen? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, as football fans, we all know that games have always been evened out before technology came in, and will probably be evened out with technology in. But wasn't a clear and obvious offside for me. If we score it and we beat Newcastle 2-1, no City fan in the world is mourning that we've won the game 2-1 and that we've benefited from it. So for me, we need to stop mourning about it. We should have won the game anyway. It probably should have been 2-2 at one stage in the game because Donnarumma's pulled off two blinders. Haaland's had one well saved by Pope with the chest. Phil Foden's put one wide of the right upright. Probably should have been 2-2. Probably should have won the game. If I'm being truthful, if we're really, being the club we are, seeing how wonderful we are at football, thinking we lost the game because of one decision, really? Really?
Well, that's what I'm going to come on to in a second, but I'm just going to quickly go around you all again just to ask one more simple question, although I think you probably answered it for yourself already, Harlan, which is when you see City fans getting really upset, and it's all over my social media, and when I do my match day vlog, lots of people comment, of course, or send me messages, and the overwhelming reaction has been the game's corrupt. It's, there's fiddling going on. This cartoon is an opportunity to put City down, and they're all against City. And yet I watched a bit of the Forest Liverpool game, and I see Liverpool denied to me what decisions that should have perhaps gone their way. Nobody would complain about that, of course. And you watch other teams playing, and you see bad decisions despite VAR happen there as well. I personally don't believe there's corruption in the game. Now, some people say I'm naive, but if I thought there was corruption in the game, I'd think, what's the point in watching it? What's the point in paying my money to go and watch games if it's corrupt? Because sport has to be honest. Now, of course, it might be mistake-ridden, and we can all go back to Alf Gray in the semi-final of the League Cup many, many years ago when a goal was disallowed by the referee and it robbed City of a place in the League Cup final at Wembley. But I don't believe that was corruption. I believe that was a mistake by an incompetent referee on the day. And that's life, isn't it? We all make mistakes. I made mistakes. There isn't a person on this podcast or listening that hasn't or won't make mistakes. We can live with that. But, I don't believe it's corrupt. Do you believe that there's any underhand stuff going on, Kit? Any corruption?
No, definitely not corruption at that level, like with the refereeing and things like that. Definitely not, in my opinion. I mean, as I mentioned before, I do some work with the Premier League and with the referees, and I've certainly never had any sort of sniff of anything underhand at all. In fact, quite the opposite. I know they're a conscientious group who really do care about the game. In fact, not just sort of like their own jobs and going out and getting paid and this, that, and the other. They genuinely care about the game and the good of the game as well. So I've been impressed with that group. Now, also saying that, listen, I've worked abroad in other countries, and it's different in other countries. I don't think everywhere maybe has the levels of sort of integrity that maybe we do over here to quite the same level. So it is different around the world. But I don't think there's a country sort of better than us. And when you consider the amount of money within the Premier League, and generally it's money that breeds corruption, I think we're quite lucky, really.
Andy?
Ian, my non-league youth development team last week, we should have been out of sight in the first half, and then the referee made a dubious decision. We've conceded a goal and lost the game of football. And then if we as coaches go to our players and say the only reason why we lost that game is because the referee gave that decision, we're not setting the right bar as coaches for our players. We're not setting the right standards because we're giving them a get out of jail card. And that, as an 18-year-old, is not the correct thing to be being told. You're not being made to answer for the decisions. And I'm talking about being made to answer in the correct way, where you have to correct the mistakes that you made in the game to go and be better next time. Now, we're talking about Premier League footballers here that are being potentially given get out of jail cards then by being given those things that we're now talking about, that a referee gave a penalty or a referee gave a goal to Newcastle and it probably should have been given as an offside. And like I said before, we should have scored goals. We should have won games. There's been times before where we should have been out of sight. There's been times before where we should have been beaten and we've not been beaten, and we've scored a goal that we've been stood in the Etihad thinking, we hope this gets ruled out because that gets us out of jail. And then when it gets ruled out, we all cheer. And when it gets given, we're all fuming. You can't have it both ways. Unfortunately, technology's in. It ain't going anywhere at the top level. Let's just get that right for a minute. It is going nowhere. The only time we could have affected it coming in was pre-2018. We've allowed it in. We've all benefited from it in some way, shape or form over the years. We've probably won titles due to being given goals that in another season wouldn't have been given because of the technological advancement since. It is what it is. So no corruption in the game. Do referees sometimes make decisions to even games out because they feel they made a mistake earlier on? Yeah, but that's just human nature. But I genuinely don't believe there's any corruption at all, no. But also, don't let your players feel like they've got away with one by saying that the only reason why you've lost a game or drawn a game is because you got denied a penalty or because you had a penalty given against you, when actually you probably should have been 3 or 4-1 up at the time. You know, for me, and I can't imagine Pep Guardiola doing that. Yes, to the media, he will question certain decisions because that is his role to do that as the head coach. But bet your bottom dollar in the dressing room, he's saying that we should have won that game to the players yesterday, because if he doesn't, they would start to lose faith in the manager.
Well, the way you've answered that question leads me on to the way we transition into the other part of this debate. Ruben Diaz, apparently after the game, was quoted as basically saying that, he thought that it should have been a foul on Donnarumma, and it certainly should have been a penalty and maybe a sending off for the Foden incident. And but he also admitted, or said anyway, whether he meant it, that Newcastle were the better side anyway and deserved to win the game. So let's go away from those incidents. Although, of course, you can make the argument to say that if the offside goal had not counted, that the result would have been different. Clearly, statistically, it would have finished 1-1, assuming nobody else scored, although goals make differences psychologically, don't they? And Newcastle sat deep and defended once they'd gone ahead, which they might not have done at 1-1. So there's all sorts of different variations that happen within a game of football. But the point is that although we can refer to those incidents, Andy, let's start with you. Do you think City losing that game was a fair reflection of what you saw? And are you worried about... We've seen Arsenal win convincingly against Tottenham today and increase their lead at the top. Are City genuinely losing a little bit of what they had in terms of this title race. And so Newcastle, should they have got more than a 2-1? Did they deserve more than a 2-1? And what about the title race now going forward?
But just going back to the corruption thing, because I never had a chance to comment. I agree with Kit entirely. I think the officials are doing their best, and the game's full of opinions and facts. And so a referee's opinion, an official's opinion is, anyway, I was taught as a sportsman, it's a fact. Whether or not it's right or wrong, you got to accept it. So all this noise around it, for me, and it's horrible, it's emotional. You know, if you're watching a match, you're not involved emotionally, it's much easier to understand what's going on. So that's that. And in terms of performance, right, okay, so for those who haven't got the visual, I'm wearing a Wales top, right? And it's not as a suck-arse to Christopher there, but it's because this week, the last 2 weeks, we've had an international break. And I know that many fans don't care about their international team. I wouldn't care about England if I was an Englishman either, really. But there you go. I care about my international team and I follow them. And I think what I saw yesterday was the impact of the international break on Manchester City Football Club. Jeremy Doku went to Kazakhstan, a 9-hour flight, and played 90 minutes. He come back and he played him against Liechtenstein at home in Brussels, another 90 minutes. And then I looked at the other City players. This was after the match because I couldn't believe the intensity and the energy Newcastle had. And then I looked at their players. I don't think any of them played last week. Certainly the wing backs who had a lot of intensity and a lot of their players. Tonali hasn't played any international football and he was all over it yesterday. And yet every one of our players was involved in international football, at least one
Can
or
I
two
interrupt
games.
you there, Andy, and play devil's advocate? Because I hear what you're saying, right? But City play a game, City, first team, and all those players play every 3 days. So if it hadn't been an international break, Jeremy Doku might have played 4 games. In the international break, he played
Yeah,
two. For what? So why are you saying he comes back from an international break
travel,
more tired than if
travel,
he to
travel. I'll tell you,
Liechtenstein?
travel.
To
I'll
Liechtenstein.
tell you, travel. No, sorry, it's travel. It's all that comes with it. Because if you've not travelled in your life, in your job, or if you go on holiday and you've got a 4 or 5 hour period of jet lag you've got to deal with, that's not easy to shake off. I think that the intensity, and we talked about the start of the season, about the fact that we had the Club World Cup and no pre-season. Look at our start of the season. It was terrible. And that was clearly because the players had not had the recovery they needed at in the summer. And I've recovered that. And then obviously against Liverpool, we thought, great, we're here now, back in the hunt again. And then 2 weeks later, we see a team with massive energy and intensity keep us out yesterday, which is what they did. From the get-go yesterday, they were all over it. And I'm convinced that if you analyse the minutes played by the players, just imagine having a 2 week break without any football compared to those on our team that had a very intense 2 week period playing football. So it's not about every 3 days; it's a comparison to who you're playing against. And yesterday, I'm convinced that if we look at it and analyse it, you will see a massive difference in minutes played in the last 2 weeks versus Newcastle and City. So I think we did well yesterday to get away with 2-1 because they battered us. And Donnarumma saved us 3 or 4 times. So, yeah, towards the end of the game, it looked like we were trying at least to get back into it. But honestly, we could have played for another hour and we wouldn't have won.
I've got to be honest, I don't have a lot of sympathy with that view, but Kit is the man who can be the expert in this because you've managed, you've played at international level, you've done absolutely everything we're talking about here. So what is the truth?
Yeah, well, and Andy's what he's saying is exactly right. It takes it out of you the travel, the international experience for sure. It takes it out of players. Now, like I say, it's only an argument if, again, as what Andy's thinking is the case here, is if the City boys have had loads more football during this international break and loads more travelling accumulative than the team they're facing in the game which was Newcastle. So, I mean, I don't know the numbers for that, but if that's correct, as Andy says, then it was quite an obvious sort of thing that they're going to be fresher and with more energy than the City boys. Now, I mean, this is why you have squads as well, and certain other clubs have rested people going into these games. But pretty much everyone in the City squads in international, they've all been away, travelling, playing games or whatever. So that's one of the things that goes against you with, and you got to look at it when you're putting your squad together at the start of the season. But you're going to want international footballers, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but they're the best players. So that's what you're going to want in your squad. Now, it's going to hit certain clubs. The AFCON coming up is going to hit certain clubs a lot harder than others. It's a part of the game. The international football is becoming even more, I think, tiring and taxing on the players than maybe it was even a few years back. There's like more games now. There's no friendly fixtures. It's now a Nations League instead of where they used to play friendly. So they're all like competitive games. So it's becoming more and more physically, mentally taxing on the players. Now, I don't want people to get the violins out and feel sorry for these boys. That's what they're paid to do, and they're very blessed and lucky to have the job they've got. And I've been lucky enough to do it. So I don't think they want sympathy, but these are facts. Sometimes if they're looking a bit tired, you've got to look at what's been happening over the last, because it's an accumulative thing as well. That will, let's say, as Andy said, over that 2 week break since the last Premier League game. How much have they travelled? How much have they trained? How much have they played? And it all adds up for sure. So,
well, just to come in on that, we actually hadn't changed our team from the team that started against Liverpool, so the squad effect was nil.
Well, I completely respect what you say, Kit, because you know far more than I do. The one other question I've got, I know Haaland's bursting to come in here, but next season, if people haven't already twigged this, I've mentioned it before on the podcast, they're changing the international break format. So instead of there being 3 2-week breaks, one in September, one in October, one in November, there'll be an extended one at the end of September that's actually going to mean 2 successive weekends without Premier League football, and the international players will play 4 games during that period rather than the 2 that they play at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the Premier League, if indeed it affects it in the way that you two are suggesting. Harlan, what do you think on this subject?
Wow, it's amazing, isn't it? Because growing up as a kid, I was buzzing when DeMarcus Beasley came on loan and got a call up to the USA national team. And I was what was I at the time? 9, 10. DeMarcus Beasley comes in. Finally, City have got an international that's doing it on the big stage for the big USA. And then guess what? Andreas Isaacson arrives and he's playing for Sweden in goal as their number 1. And Joey Barton gets in the England squad. And then I'm like going into school, giving it. We've got City players in national teams. And now look, like Kit says, every player is playing international football. And we're complaining about it. I'm only messing. Obviously, I'm only messing. Look, Newcastle away was always going to be one of the worst fixtures for us after international break. I have stolen that. I do believe it, but I have stolen that from one of your very eloquent vlog contributors yesterday. And it was an older guy at the end of the game that came on and said that Newcastle away was the worst game we could have had after the international break. I don't know if you remember him saying it, of course, but he got his point across really well, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. There's easier places to go off the back of a 1 week international break, and Newcastle with their fan base behind them, with the quality they've got, with an inspired Harvey Barnes, who, by the way, is an unbelievable left winger and should be playing at a very, very, very high level, and is, but probably could be playing at a higher level for a top 4 team. Probably wasn't the tonic that we needed, but in the end, we had to play it, and in the end, probably could have won it, should have won it, didn't win it, and we've got to move on, tail between our legs, and push on for next weekend's big fixture now.
The worrying thing for me was, because I take on board everything you've said, even though I might not 100% agree with Andy, but obviously got the greatest respect for Kit, is that City also lost at Villa, looking second best in terms of effort, and there was no excuse about international breaks after that one, or sorry, before that, or Brighton away, or Tottenham at home. So this has happened 4 times now, and so I'm not sure City are quite at the moment at the level that they have been in the past. And let's face it, they've been an absolute phenomenal team with the best manager on the planet. So it's not a criticism, it's just an observation. So to finish off the podcast, the next podcast will be after the home game against Leeds. And between now and then, City have 2 home games: Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League, followed by Leeds United at the Etihad Stadium. On paper, especially after beating Dortmund at home in the last Champions League game, who are generally thought of as a stronger team than Leverkusen. I know they won the league a couple of years ago under Alonso, but nevertheless, I would have thought City would beat both of these 2 teams at home. Is that the way you see it? And I'll leave Kit to the end on this one and start with you, Andy. To 2 home games off the back of Newcastle, now recovered presumably from the fatigue of the internationals. Are they going to beat those 2 teams? Are you in any way concerned?
No, on paper, you'd expect us to come out of those 2 games with victories. I'm not sure about. I think Leeds at home would be trickier, but at our place, I think, yeah, we should be able to dispatch them. Leverkusen, if I'm honest, I'm not really on board with exactly how they are this season, but I think they've had their best players move on. So yeah, I'm not expecting too much difficulty midweek nor on Saturday, to be honest.
Alan?
Well, they're my German club, Ian. I know yours is Schalke. Leverkusen are my German club. Just from growing up as a kid, I always liked them. Alonso did very well with them. He built an unbelievable side there. Obviously, like Andy's eloquently said, players have moved on. They were ransacked a bit like Monaco were back in 2017-18 when we took a couple of players from them, one being my favourite City player, Bernardo Silva. What a coup he was. But they are still a very good side. Third in the Bundesliga, I believe, at the moment. Still a very good rounded side. Always difficult to compete with the likes of Dortmund, Bayern Munich, RB Leipzig. But they are there or thereabouts every year by Leverkusen, and they're a very, very good side. Dortmund, I was there for it. Thought that they looked better in the first half than they did in the second half. We turned the screw on them. I thought in the end it was a very good performance. Pretty unique to be playing 2 German sides back to back in the Champions League, to be honest. They'll be different, but they'll still have that stern German soul that German teams have, where they will be strong, they will be difficult to break down. They'll come at us in moments. They'll be able to sit in and frustrate us as well. It's going to all be about how do we bounce back from the defeat against Newcastle, against a good side in Leverkusen, knowing that then we've got to prepare for a game against Leeds, who at the moment aren't performing as well as they would like to be, albeit a newly promoted side, but that no doubt will try and frustrate us. We'll probably play a bit lower in terms of block than recent sides have done and force us yet again to break them down. It could actually be that because even though Leverkusen and Leeds are gulfs apart in terms of quality, that with Leverkusen being a solid German side and Leeds being managed by a German manager and being willing to sit in and frustrate us, that we could actually encounter similar sides in terms of the way that they'll look to counteract what we can throw at them. So actually, the Leverkusen game could be a good dress rehearsal for what's to come at the weekend against Leeds. Should we beat Leeds? Yeah. Are we going to batter Leeds? Who knows? We've seen over the seasons that newly promoted sides, as much as mid-table sides and sides outside the top 4, can cause us problems. At the moment, I don't think we're ticking as well as we should be. I do think that we should win both games. Whether I think we will, at the moment, I don't know. We don't necessarily need to win on Tuesday night because we've done a lot of groundwork in the Champions League. So for me, a draw on Tuesday night wouldn't upset me too much against a good side in Leverkusen. But a win against Leeds is a must.
So final word to you, Kit, and thanks very much again for giving us so much of your precious time. 2 games to come at home. I don't know whether you'll be at one or both of them. I know you're at a lot of home games. What are you expecting from them 2 games?
Yeah, well, I'm coming up for the Leeds game, so I'm definitely there for that. Not sure, probably not Leverkusen. I was there for the Dortmund game. Um, I'm expecting a tough game. I think it will be, and on the back of the Newcastle game the other day, like I say, maybe potentially energy levels were not as high as we would like them to have been. So I think it will be a tough game, Leverkusen in midweek. But I think City will just have enough to get over the line. But as Harlan said, if that was to be a draw, it by far wouldn't be the end of the world any stretch of the imagination. So, but then I think quite convincingly or fairly comfortably, I think we'll beat Leeds, dispatch Leeds on at the weekend. So, yeah, I think we'll nick it midweek against Leverkusen as well, if I'm honest. But like I say, I wouldn't be overly disappointed with a draw. But I'm expecting to beat Leeds then at the weekend.
Well, thanks to the three of you for your contribution. Hope as you as a listener have enjoyed our debate and found something interesting and something to think about in it. Thanks very much again to DSW, who are one of the supporters of the work that I do. But most of all, thanks very much to Kit Symons and to Andy and Harlan from our Forever Blue team. I'll be back with another podcast after the Leeds game. So have a good week. If you go into the Leverkusen game or indeed the Leeds game and you see me out and about, come and say hello, contribute to the match day vlog, which of course you can see the one at Newcastle, which is up on YouTube right now, and see what people thought after that defeat at Newcastle. Have a good week. And if you only remember one thing from this podcast, remember this, because it's always true. Win, lose or draw, it's great to be a Blue.